From the first day that Donald Trump's Attorney General William Barr released his 4-page letter about the Mueller report on the Trump investigation, any thinking person realized that it did not accurately represent the content of the Mueller report. There was conflicting legalese. There was a sort of deliberately mixed up use of words like establish versus find. It read like a political document, because that's what it was, not sort of a sober, honest law enforcement assessment. And then once the Mueller report was published, this was confirmed. The Mueller report is truly devastating to Donald Trump, and it has sparked this huge impeachment movement within the Democratic Party that we've been talking about. But a question that kept coming up, including from people who would call me during live calls, was if Robert Mueller really felt that the Barr letter was not an honest representation of the report, that it was deceptive in some way, wouldn't we have heard publicly from Robert Mueller? And my answer at the time, and it remains my answer, is no. Mueller kept quiet the entire investigation, save for like one or two statements that were made through his spokesperson. So I wouldn't expect Robert Mueller to come out guns blazing and loudly and publicly saying William Barr is being deceptive. But last night, in a just blockbuster story in the Washington Post, we learned that Robert Mueller actually does think that the Barr characterization of his report was dishonest, and he privately contacted William Barr to tell him this. And this is the strongest indictment yet of the cover-up act that William Barr has participated in. And it's stunning, but also not surprising, because we suspected all along that this was exactly the situation. The Washington Post has learned of both a letter and a phone call from Robert Mueller to William Barr. The letter component was sent to William Barr on March 27th. And in this letter, Robert Mueller complained that the 4-page memo, or as I call it, a propaganda letter, which was written by William Barr, quote, did not fully capture the context, nature, and substance of Robert Mueller's investigation. Exactly as I told you, it was deceptive, it was incomplete, it was calculated, it lacked context, it was dishonest, and it was primarily dishonest in that as a general sort of concept, it framed the Mueller report as exonerating Trump totally and completely, which it didn't actually do. This letter that Robert Mueller sent to William Barr reportedly shocked senior Justice Department officials that a special prosecutor would be in such disagreement with the public statements of William Barr about his investigation that he wrote a letter in these terms with this language to the Attorney General. The letter is devastating, but it confirms every single one of our suspicions. Here's just one piece of it that I want to put up on the screen and read to you. Quote, the summary letter the department sent to Congress and released to the public late in the afternoon of March 24 did not fully capture the context, nature, and substance of this office's work and conclusions. There is now public confusion about critical aspects of the results of our investigation. This threatens to undermine a central purpose for which the department appointed the special counsel, to assure full public confidence in the outcome of the investigations. And Mueller is completely right. He spent 2 years investigating. He found, to quote the report, substantial evidence of Donald Trump obstructing justice, found all sorts of wrongdoing by Trump and people around him. And William Barr, by putting out this 4-page propaganda letter about the probe, a dishonest letter, undermines the whole point of even having the investigation. You didn't need an investigation if either way the Attorney General was going to say Trump is cleared and he's effectively the victim here. And we now know that Robert Mueller's letter was followed up by a phone call, which reportedly lasted about 15 minutes. That's one phone call I would love to hear a recording of. And again, during the call, Mueller said, media coverage of the report as a result of the letter you put out is misguided, and it's creating public misunderstandings of what the findings actually are. And the most important takeaway from all of this, as unsurprising as it is that this was the plan all along. It worked. The whole point of installing Barr after temporarily having Matthew Whitaker running the Justice Department, of having Barr put this letter out before the report so that the media exoneration tour could be done by Trump and right-wing media and even some in left-wing media, This was all meant to prime the pump for people to say no collusion, no obstruction, forget about it. I told you that this was the plan all along from the moment Matthew Whitaker was put in there. And Robert Mueller saying this only confirms it. And most Americans will never read the Mueller report. They knew that the Barr letter would set the tone and the content for most Americans. It's very difficult to fight against that right now. Conservative Bill Kristol, with whom I agree, I agree with him basically never. He actually had a pretty good take about this on Twitter last night. He said, quote, Mueller's report, read without Barr's coloring, invites the House to at least consider impeachment. Now that Barr's coloring has been, as it were, erased, how can the White House avoid its responsibility? What's at this point to be gained by trying fastidiously to avoid the dread word? I believe he means the dreaded word. How does Bill Kristol become the voice of reason? And then the next question is, what now? Mueller needs to testify. We have to hear from Mueller. We have to hear from Mueller's prosecutors, who said more than a year ago that they determined Donald Trump did obstruct justice, but for political reasons dropped the idea of indicting him. And there are now Democrats also considering impeachment of William Barr over what they feel accurately is William Barr having hugely misled Congress when he previously testified. We'll find out what happens in his testimony today. The right and Trump were hoping that the Mueller report was the beginning of the end. I hope that this is only the start of the middle game, because there are only more problems rising that are going to need to be dealt with. I don't know if anybody's going to face consequences here. I really don't, for all of this wrongdoing. But people should. And I hope that Democrats will have both the backbone, but also the political will to make sure that people are held accountable. I am thrilled to tell you that today's episode is sponsored in part by Blinkist.com/Pakman. Blinkist is a really unique service for your phone, tablet, and web browser, and it is incredibly useful for people like me who love books and learning but are busy. Blinkist takes the best and most popular nonfiction books and condenses them into 15-minute audiobooks. I'm sure that if you're like me, you have a very long list of books that you've been meaning to read. You only have so many hours in the day, and that's why Blinkist is so amazing. They take the most important information, the themes, the insights from each book, and they distill it into a 15-minute audiobook that you can listen to in one sitting. I've listened to a ton of books on Blinkist. Our audience can get a 7-day free trial by going to Blinkist.com/Pakman. If you're watching on YouTube, I put a link in the description. I have listened to Blinkist books about economics, about political science, about history, about science, so many interesting things. And after the free trial, if you like it, you can continue enjoying thousands of condensed audiobooks for about $5 a month. Go to Blinkist.com/Pakman. That's BLINKIST.com/PAKMAN.